next is about the social action. This social action actually is a model involves mobilizing the community members. We have already discussed somewhere in another way this all activism approach. So that community members, especially means this is to mobilize the community members, especially those who are actually disadvantaged, and then demand the change, and then fight inequalities, and gain, they want some kind of the they want to gain some kind of the rights. So it's a use to address the issues of power imbalance and injustice, often employs tactics like protest and advocacy and lobbying to press for actually to bring some kind of the reform. So it's actually put some kind of the pressure through lobbying and such kind of the strategies. So the style is primarily one in which social justice is dominant ideal here. Here, major concern is about the social justice. Social action is whenever you go with any kind of the activism. So major concern is always is social justice. Social action is premised on the belief that there is a disadvantaged segment in society that need to be organized to enable them to voice their demands and social justice or democracy. There is always a part and parcel of such reality in every community. So taking their participation into any programs and giving their due developmental participation, you need some kind of the social action on behalf of them, or taking along them, or bringing social action for them, to them, and through them. So practitioners of this approach mobilize the low power constituencies and equip them with the skills to impact or to work for their own for their own power, to getting their own power. This approach actually aims at making fundamental changes in the community, including the redistribution of the power and resources, and gaining access to the decision making decision making. Practitioners in the social actions here is a domain aim to empower then the benefit the poor and then deprived and oppressed section of the community. So here major concern is about looking to the oppressed section of the community and taking them along in any aspect of the development for which you are there maybe. So so depending upon, if you see that any program and policies, or you're working with any agency, or you're working with in some community, you identified that a few marginalized communities has been not been participated, they have not been given the resources, resource shares and all. So you have to go with some kind of the social action along with the neighborhood development, along with another sect. Maybe the neighborhood development, a majority of the community, they are combined together, they work on it, but they left a small population, a small section of the community. So for them you can go with the social action. So depending upon the demands and the requirements, you can use the approaches and models. So confrontation tactics, I have already mentioned that demonstration, strikes, marches, boycotts, and other disruptive or attention gaining moves you can go with, right? Here this approach has been widely used by any activism in the area of field of health, in the field of women rights. It could be in the right for the LGBTQ, in the if it is in the urban areas. Mainly it is not the issue which has been raised in the rural areas yet, I mean still today, but it could be somewhere in the rural areas, but mainly this is the issue of the urban areas. So there are another issues in the rural areas, like the concern for the resources, and then you know displacements issues of the tribal communities, even of the displacement issue of the rural communities. The lands has been the land acquisitions in the name of the development by the some big corporates. It has all been there. So this only things that what the community members can do is to the coming together and then do the demonstration, strike, marches against such big corporates to make their lands free from them. So this is what they can do. So definitely this is the only way they can do. At that time they cannot go with the neighborhood development, they cannot go for any other approach. So social action is the right approach at that time. So when community subgroups are hostile and interests are not reconcilable through usual discussions method, social action is most suitable. So if things has gone beyond the discussion, so social action is the last uh, uh, s- last approach has to be followed by the committee members. So this social action, again, what needed here is the awareness raising, organizing, and advocacy. So for this social action, awareness raising and developing conscientization, consciousness around some issues is important. And once the majority of the members identify with the issues, so that is what the important here, that is awareness raising. Then organizing, once they are getting aware and they are concerned for the issue, but they are not coming together, they are not organizing, they don't organize around some particular time period or some for some meetings. So organizing is another very important tactics which has been required for the social action. And then advocacy is the part. So this is what Rothman has actually making a comparison between locality development model, social planning model and social action model. These all three, I must mention here, all these three are the model distinct in nature, applicable as per the need of the community, as per the need of the hour, as the need of the issues and the concern. But these models are also overlapping, overlapping many a time, and it could be work independently. So this all models help in conceptualizing the practices and helpful the practitioners in how to move within communities and given a more concrete direction. So if you look into the difference in the goals of locality development, of social planning and social action, so self-help, problem solving, and substantive community. So this is what just whatever we have discussed, this is a summarization of all three models of locality development, social planning, and social action. So just moving ahead, as per the H.Y. Siddiqui model, this is again as more from the Indian perspective. It could be, apply mainly H.Y. Siddiqui has given and talked about the three model, that neighborhood development model, system change model, and structural change model. But we cannot ignore the fact that inter-community model is also important in this very multicultural society of ours, and as the needs is also of the very varied nature. So sometimes you need some another community to intervene, to participate together, to work for the some very local issues, to erase some kind of the issues which has been there in one community by some another community. So just discuss one by one. So the very first model given by H.P. Siddiqui is neighborhood development model. This is the oldest model of the community organization from the Indian perspective. This model has been actually practiced in India and in some of the any underdeveloped communities or underdeveloped countries. It has been used in the developmental activities. In general, it is believed that people living in neighborhood have the capacity to meet their problems they come across in their day to day life through their own efforts, and the through the some common or the local resources. The main aspect here is that the community realize its needs and take appropriate actions and steps to meet the needs of that community. So which will bring greater satisfaction to all its members, both individually and collectively, when they do it by themselves. So the role of the worker here is to, in this model, is to actually induce a process that will bring and that will actually sensitize the community members and make the community realize their own issues and their own needs and concerns. Based on the value of self-sustenance, the worker energizes the community and make the community self-reliant and not merely dependent on the help from outside. So they heard this, the general assumption underlying this model is that people living in this community, that is the neighborhood. So neighborhood here, community is about neighborhood, right? Have the basic and inherent capacity of meeting their own needs problem through their own initiative and resources. So this is the first thing, is about giving the assumption that the community is having all the capacity and the resources to bring change in their own life. Next is the worker is expected to induce a process. Here your role is to induce the process. And then the recent changes in this model of community work lay more emphasis on the development of self-sustaining indigenous organization within the community. Means we have also identified the local, you can call it as some religious organization, any civil societies available in that community. Maybe it is gurudwara, mandir, masjid, or waqf board, or any such kind of the civil societies, or any CBO, that is community based organization, or even any voluntary organizations of that area has also been identified as an important resource to work to resolve the issues of their own community. The emphasis is to encourage thinking on the part of the people themselves to adapt progressive attitudes rather than doing things for them. So not support them every time, or making them dependent on you. So this dependency is not being considered, is not acceptable in the neighborhood development model. Rather, we have to create a such situation where they have developed the kind of progressive attitude. A long-term involvement of the social work or agency due to the change process, being a long drawn and gradual one, is required. So the specific steps involved in these models are identification, local and demarcation of the physical area. Next is the entry into the community, identifying the needs of the different sections of the community, program planning, resource planning, developing an organization network in the community. So this is again important, organizational network. If there is any other organization in the communities, you have to identify and then develop a network among them. Partial withdrawal within a time frame. This is again important, as HY Siddiqui has suggested, because you are there to support them, not to make them dependent on you. So you have to withdraw as a you've identified that it's okay now, the community is capable enough for and they need not any kind of the so much of the external support. Just give them space to develop and grow by self. Next model given by the HY Siddiqui is system change model. This actually aimed to identify the dysfunctional aspect of the community, mainly based on this whole system change model is based on taking the community as a system, as a social system, right? So this model views community from the social system perspective, as in the neighborhood, where the community has taken as a neighborhood, right? Community has taken as a neighborhood, or the collection of people living in some geographical area. Here in the system change model, where the community is considered as a social system perspective, where this model actually presuppose that exercise of various arrangement of the subsystem in society to cater to the basic needs of the of like any kind of the needs of the community could be resolved, could be could be fulfilled through those interconnectedness of those subsystems, like for the education and employment, so anything. So this whole system has been developed based on the social production and social consumption, because someone need, someone produce. So this need and produce is in because of these interaction, and a balance between these production and consumption make a system in an intact, make a system is progressive, is actually functional. So but this system can become dysfunctional at certain, in some situations, and could be a variety of factors, and which in turn create a strain and pressure on the system. So here at this moment, at that time, where you find and then the committee identify, even the agency identify and you identify that there's some kind of a dysfunctional happening in the system, so there the point to intervene. So the system may become dysfunctional either because of what it is producing is not relevant for the people, or because many people do not have access to what is being produced. Here production and consumption does not directly about the production, producing some kind of the article and someone is buying. It's not only simple is like that, it's also within part, but apart from that also it's about the relationship. So maybe the kind of the production and the kind of things which has been emerging is not suitable, is not been ideal for the community to accept it. So in that situation, dysfunctional happen, right? And account of disparities between the different socioeconomic and special segments of the population, it could arise because of this all differences. This dysfunctional happens. So here aim is to of the community worker or organizer is to rectify this dysfunctional aspect. by understanding the deficiency or mobilize the community participants and channelize the outer resources translate to plan and concrete change. So sometimes through some kind of internal resources you can bring changes. Sometimes you found that there are dysfunctional because of something is deficient, something is not available, so you can also channelize those things from outside and to make it available for the community. Here aim to rectify the dysfunction, I mean that I have already told you. The worker attempts here to a strategy of either reconstruction or modifying the system. This is termed as a system change approach model of the community work. Here that need, because of any kind of a dysfunctional system is in problem, so that needs to rectify, that need to work on after whole analysis of the where to work and what is to work. So a specific task here in this model is to collect relevant facts about the specific deficiencies in the system. What is there? What is actually deficient? Maybe the urban biases, disparity in access to services, lack of trained functionaries, inadequate delivery structure, lack of funding, leading to inadequacy or anything else. And then sharing the finding with the committee members. So see this, these are the issues, because of this the problem has been there. Selecting an appropriate strategy to actually influence decision making bodies or to focus attention on the issue. Next is mobilizing community and outside support to put the plan into action. So one thing is to mobilizing internally and mobilizing externally if it is required. Developing an organization in the community and linking it to similar organization in other communities and other agencies which can help them in damaging or so in demanding challenges or in demanding change. So this is what the inter-community approach as well. Next is a structural change model. So in the system, a dysfunctional happened, so rectify those dysfunctional aspect of the system. Here is in a structural change model based on the assumption that the relationship between the different sections of the population is somewhere structured into formally and informal power structure of the community, right? So that formally like the policies, laws, and then informal kind of things like the cultural norms and all that influences social rights in that individual. So this whole structural change model is based on this assumption that relationship built on some informal and formal power structure of the community. This model visualizes community as a small cell within the larger body of the society. Okay. So in the structural change model, the worker actually analyzes the link between the macro structure of social relationship, and that could be the macro policies, to the micro reality. It could be the problem of unemployment in the community or lack of access of large section of the people to education, to health facilities, or to credit or any kind of thing. So that is what the micro reality. Macro situation doesn't allow someone or some disadvantaged group to actually get some kind of the resources. So that is what the micro reality. So micro reality is the issue, and then you have to work on the factors that maybe could be coming from the macro policies or macro relationship. So macro relation could be a power structure. So it also requires the worker to possess an understanding of human society in all its dimensions, of understanding all the kind of the capitals available in the community and all the power structure in the community. So, and the kind and the type of the power structure within a community. So economic, political, social or culture, it could be any so I mean in all the area you must be very much aware about. It also calls for an understanding of the link between the micro and macro realities. The worker tries to understand and mobilize the community to participate in the radical alteration of the macro structure so as to impact the micro reality. See, if you want to bring the change in the structure, that's always through some kind of the lobbying, through some mass mobilization, through some kind of the social action, right? So this structural change model actually emphasizing towards that. The specific tasks involved in this model are to develop an understanding of the link between micro and macro social realities, to make a conscious decision about the alternative political ideology, to share this understanding with the community, to enable it to make its own decisions, to help the community identify a plan of action to pursue its goal by locating specific issues and consequence action to launch a long struggle, to help the community sustain its interest enthusiasm, and capacity to meet the strain which is likely to arise out of an inevitable conflict within the existing power structure. So, the last one is about the intercommunity model. In the intercommunity model, as I have already mentioned while discussing about this system change model, that sometime you also you just look into the last paragraph. The worker attempts to strategy of either reconstructing the or modifying the system. This termed as sorry, here in the last point you can see the last point, mobilize, developing an organization in the community and linking it to the similar organization in another community and other agencies which can help them in damaging in demanding change. So see, if this intercommunity model talks about the intercommunity approach, wider scope of it gives a wider scope of intervention. Maybe some kind of issues cannot be rectified by the available resources in the one community or one smaller community, that needs some kind of the external support from some other community. Maybe so another the community is having that resources that maybe of no use of them, or maybe they are using those. So sharing those resources, sharing those capacities and capabilities or their skill to that community in need can actually bring changes into this community. Or so after supporting this community in future may be coming it's about the social exchange. So in future they also come forward and support to this community where that community supports them and in their time of requirements and needs. So this intercommunity model actually give this idea because that our society or the community is living in the larger community. So taking the larger community perspective, where the every small communities is so self sufficient and in capacity and capabilities to help other in need, or another in the time of the support. So there's a lot of the resources which has been available in one community is not been available in another community is in need also. By collaborating with that and sharing that resources, both the community can get benefit out of that, right? So this is have definitely a wider scope of intervention if we're looking into the Indian perspective, where the large population is there, with a lot of the good large population living in the rural areas. So to actually to work with those larger communities or larger population, this intercommunity model is so much what I feel is more feasible. Some problems needs may or may not be solved by the community, as I've discussed, right? Through internal resources, people from other communities can collaborate and bring changes in their life. Goal to meet here is to meet the local needs and not the system or structural change. Here another community is not concerned about to bring change in their structure and then system. It's only about that if there is any kind of the deficiency, maybe in terms of the resources, maybe in terms of any capital. So that is what to support that and to enhance that capital in the time of the requirement and needs. So thank you so much. This is all about the models and approaches and then history of the community organization. I hope you understand, and it is definitely is going to help you out while you are working with the community. Different approaches and different models you could apply, or you can even at the same time you can use number of the models all together. So this all the model actually guides you, giving you the whole idea that how to work with, what to work with, and if the community is more organized, so what kind of the model is required. If the community is more heterogeneous, so what kind of the models is required. If the resources is not available, but so what kind of the approach is required. If some kind of the power structure is in a problem, there's some kind of the community members, their rights has not been fulfilled, so what kind of the approaches then you have to go with. So it could be a very specific approach you can go with, or model you can go with, or you can go with at the same time multi models all together. So depending upon the situation, it's always a suggestive aspect for a social worker. Be flexible. Thank you so much.